We have with us Uno Motohiko, who's the country president, Fujitsu Asia Pacific. And we also have Keith Hawks, who's the regional vice president for sales, Asia Pacific, Ellucian. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. So, it's been quite an extraordinary couple of years for education, right? Within 2019, 2020, and now coming to 2021. The way that education used to be has been completely upended. And what we see in classrooms is, remote learning is the norm across the world. And a lot of technology has to be infused within the classroom, within the way the school works, even in the back end, the administrative side. So in order to sort of take stock on that, I'd love to ask a few questions to the both of you. So maybe starting off with Uno-san, considering that all education institutions are going digital, what are some of the biggest hurdles at the moment when it comes to educational institutions going digital?
Before I talk about the education specialized things, I want to touch on a little bit about the Fujitsu's overall strategy. And Fujitsu last year, we defined our purpose of why we are existing in the world. That is to make the world more sustainable by building trust in society through innovation. So this is Fujitsu's purpose statement. And then also Fujitsu is announced that we will transform ourselves from IT company or ICT company to a DX company. So this is the current Fujitsu's transformation of ourselves, how we can transform our business to a digital transformation. Okay, and then from Fujitsu viewpoint, education. This is really important to create the new future or happy future by educating the people. Only people can create the future, sustainable future with the learning base. So that is the kind of belief of Fujitsu's. That especially in Japan and also in Singapore, we identify that education area is the kind of strategic and focused area we should work there. Then digitalization. We have studied this digitalization before the COVID-19, of course. And digitalization, the most important thing is the data. So that data has to be integrated with a consistent manner. And then this data, integrated data has to be analyzed and create the new value to the customers. That should be the digital transformation. But I think, and also we are technology provider, so that the component of digital transformation like computing processing technology or data technology or cloud technology, AI technology, IoT technology, 5G technology, or security technology. We are based as ICT vendors, so we can provide those technology to the digital transformation. But so that the technology will be available, but more challenges is that how the education sector can transform their business operation or process based on the data management. So that I think one of the challenges is that how we can drive the education sector in that manner. Just applying the technology is not enough. How we can moderate the people to change the mindset and then change the process or procedure in the organization. That is a kind of challenges for ICT vendor or DX vendor to contribute to the customers. So that is the initial answer for this question.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. And we've been following Fujitsu's own internal digital transformation quite closely. So it's quite an extraordinary step forward. Excellent. Keith, from your perspective, from Ellucian?
Yeah, look, it's been a really interesting time in the sector, hasn't it? Let's be honest. And, we've seen, I mean, even before COVID hit, we saw a big move toward digital transformation. And that was really because expectations had changed from students around how they engage with education. You know, we had a lot of millennials coming into universities who expected anytime, anywhere access to services, you know, easy, personalized information. However, when COVID hit, we saw that cost out. We saw universities sort of coming back, looking at their financial positions, and trying to become more sustainable. And look, I think another key thing that happened during that time was obviously a rapid move to online, because, you know, we saw students who were stranded overseas, not able to go to their first sessions. We saw students in lockdown, and institutions had to very rapidly change the way they taught across the sector. And look, CIOs and education did a great job, really, in reacting as quickly as they did. You know, we saw CIOs cobble together some great solutions, temporary but great solutions, and you know, that really helped the sector. But look, what we're seeing now is that obviously there's new user profiles, there's new profiles. COVID post pandemic is all about how has the learner profile changed? How do we meet those evolving expectations? We've obviously got a massive loss in revenue as we've seen international student recruitment die across the sector. We've seen a lot more competition actually from online. As students start to look at, if I'm doing online, what other options have I got? And what a private sector such as Apple or those sort of organizations offering, and how do I, you know, maybe I do something different around that. And then we saw a lot of staff redundancies. And they're all the different challenges that are facing institutions at the moment. If we look at digital transformation, though, some of the things that we're seeing across our customers is, and I think we underestimate this, universities are very complex, large organizations. They're like little cities. They run retail, they run teaching and learning, they run accommodation, they run research, they do all sorts of different things. And then some of them even run hospitals. And if you take each of those individual industries, they're complex in their own right. But what we've seen in the last couple of decades really is an underinvestment in IT. So we've seen institutions implement solutions to meet those different businesses, but not particularly investing a lot of money to modernize their architectures as industries moved on. And so that is a major challenge for institutions, I think, as they consider digital transformation. Just to Sam's sort of comment around people and process, I think that's a really important one. I think digital transformation isn't just about technology, and it's all about organizations being able to adopt and adapt innovation. And look, universities by their very nature are risk averse. They tend to function in silos. So you've got very siloed business parts. You've got a unionized workforce, and you've got academics who find it challenging really to change. And so, I think a big part of the whole digital transformation is how do you bring people on that journey? How do you enable them to be more effective in what they do and think digitally? They have to start thinking outside the box. How do I become a digital thinker and an innovator and driving what our organization is trying to do? And I think the final major challenge we're seeing is budgets. No doubt that universities have struggled big time over COVID, and we're going to see that loss continue for a year or so. So IT budgets have been stripped significantly. So what are we hearing? We need to do digital transformation cheaper, faster. And that's something we've been working really extensively on. So look, we've got a 50-year history in education with single focus. We've got 2,700 student system implementations under our belts. And like our customers, we've been watching. We live and breathe their business. And so we understand the challenges they face. We listen to it firsthand from our customers, and we've had to adapt very rapidly as well. And so, we've done some really innovative things. We've taken the lessons learned. We've taken common practice from those 2,700 implementations, and we've said, what is proven practice? What does a university need to do as they reinvent themselves in the new world? Let's have a look at the strategic objectives. How do we map those to business capability? And then what are the functions that support that? And that's something we are really excited to work with Fujitsu on. because that sort of defines what's the blueprint to success as institutions start to look to the future of education. I should say, though, that probably one of the things I would say is that, if you're doing transformation and you're making decisions on cost alone, be wary that you'll get some quick wins, but it may cost more over a longer period of time. So that's probably the only other thing I'd add to that. I hope that sort of answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the point that the university is a very complex business, I think is somewhat underappreciated, right? I mean, you have, my university used to run a cinema. It's extraordinary. They run hospitals, cinemas. I mean, it is really a city in itself. And sometimes, the geography of the entire city has to adapt to the university in many cases. So, and again, the point about the competition from online sources, competition from private sector is quite a challenge as well. So let's go maybe a little bit deeper into the past couple of years, right? In terms of how we've seen COVID particularly impact education itself. I mean, if this had happened, COVID had happened 10, 15 years ago, I think we'd be in much bigger trouble than we are in right now, considering that, technology just wasn't at that level. So over the past couple of years, how has COVID particularly impacted education? So maybe Uno-san again?
Yeah, obviously, under the COVID situation, pandemic situations, the physical connection among the people, the student, teachers, among the students are disconnected. So that we need to provide the infrastructure for them to reconnect. It should be a battery, but we need to provide such an infrastructure for the schools, education sectors. And also, I'm from Japan, and not only COVID-19, but recent issues in Japan is that, for instance, the low birth rate. Low birth rate means the students is less and less. So that university also need to be very serious for the management, how they run the university itself. So in this sense, they need to diverse the education way, not only graduated students, but also the reskilling the people after they go out to the schools. Especially under the COVID-19, some industries are heavily impacted. And then there are many people losing the business or losing a job. And then those people has to be de-skilled and then to look for the new business opportunity. This kind of things also can be the value of university to survive under this bit tough management situation. So in this, from those aspects, we Fujitsu, our viewpoint, provide secured, established the platform for them to enjoy the virtual environment. So I think that is the one of the observation for me from Fujitsu viewpoint for the challenges last 2 years, 3 years.
Excellent. That's a very fair point because even in Singapore, there is, also a very similar problem in that sense. And, reskilling people, in mid-career, during the mid-career journey is quite difficult. So that, education is not just primary, secondary, but, the whole element of mid-career education is becoming more and more important. Absolutely. Keith, from your perspective?
Thank you.
Yeah, look, I think from my perspective, it's been really interesting to see how universities have evolved over the last couple of years. I think there's been a realization that institutions need to reinvent themselves. They need to change their target operating models to drive new revenue. Even competition between local universities now is becoming predominant. And so institutions are looking at how do we do recruitment better? How do we retain our students? In a world where the likelihood is they can switch and swap, they can go to different online courses. So it's almost that customer journey, the customer experience piece is becoming predominant as institutions start to look to that. As we start to look at that increased online learning, to Una-san's point, cybersecurity, it's a major problem now. We're doing a lot more online, and we've got a lot more threats that sit out there in terms of the opportunity for hackers to get in and start doing things. So working with organizations like Fujitsu to solve those problems is becoming more and more important. So look, and again, I think even the professional lifelong learning, we're seeing as they're realizing, or universities are realizing, that their international recruitment's not there. It's how do we bring in a different cohort of students? How do we look at professional development? How do we look at where state governments investing funding in terms of industry? How do we then align our curriculum to the next generation of Industry 4? And so if you look at Adelaide in Australia, for example, the state government's investing heavily in defence, in agri-tech, in health. So they're saying, well, how do we align now to industry partners like Fujitsu, who might have capabilities there? How do we partner? How do we train their staff, but also jointly badge curriculum so that if somebody wants a career in Fujitsu, we can offer students an opportunity to joint develop staff and give them a pathway into Fujitsu, and at the end of it, they can come out with a qualification that gives them a really good opportunity for employment, which is what everybody wants, right? The other thing is, what that does is promotes research in that area. So if you're doing some niche research, it actually then starts to generate some academics to come into the sector and to do some really interesting work around those particular areas. Then students who want to go into those industries and want to be part of that research, so they will join that institution to work with those leading researchers. So it's sort of a self-perpetuating revenue generation. So B2B is becoming a really important part of where the future of education is going, and we're working with our customers specifically around some of that thought leadership, and we're working with Fujitsu around their thought leadership in this area to come up with, how do we be really innovative in this industry to look at the future of education, how we as a partnership can drive new innovation and thought leadership throughout our customer base.
Brilliant. A couple of things that you mentioned about, revenue generation, the business of running the university, the greater ecosystem. So let's get deeper into that, right? So when it comes to stuff like revenue generation, running the university, the university has different departments, right? You have the academics, you have admissions, you have finance, and every one of them, what happens a lot of times is that they have their own sort of point solutions. You might have a marketing in the cloud, and then a completely different solution that is not very well integrated with admissions for finance. So that is generally how a lot of universities or educational institutions run. So is it better to have an integrated solution? What are the advantages of that? Let's get a little bit deeper into that. So Uno-san, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the key of successful digital transformation is to using the consistent data from collection the data, processing the data, analyzing the data, and then making a value on the data. So data is quite important, and this data has to be very consistent. But if the application developed organization by organization or in a very side manner, then it is very difficult to integrate the data or to have the consistent data across the systems. So that sometimes there is the duplication of input is required, and also output is different, but data itself is different from the system by system. So that why we are working with Ellucian is that Ellucian has a really comprehensive integrated solution for data viewpoint. We can enjoy the consistent data in all of the system. So I think that is definitely the advantage for the customers.
Excellent. That's a very good point, because just an example I remembered was that when I was in university, they used to have computerized admissions, and then the end result would be that they would print out all of the register and then hand write that into badges and hand write that into different systems. So completely defeats the purpose altogether. And I think it's probably replicated across many other schools. So yeah, very, very true. Consistency of data and lack of silos, I think it's a major issue. Keith, from your perspective?
Yeah, look, I again reflect on what Uno-san said, because it's absolutely correct. I think the universities collect a vast amount of data. They've got so much information on their students. The problem is they don't know how to use it properly. and they're all in silos. It's all these data silos that sit across the organization. And even if we look at the businesses within a university, and we just look at, for example, marketing, you'll tend to find that the marketing director or the chief marketing officer will go off and look for a solution specific to marketing, and it might be Adobe or Sitecore, and it will be totally devoid of talking to the CIO, who's got a student system that manages applications and understands the students they're dealing with. So just the simplicity of saying, hey, you've got a student here who's applying. We've got information in our student system that we understand they've applied for something before. They've already done a unit somewhere, and so they can get some recognition for that, and being able to market that to students and say, hey, do you know you could knock 6 months off your degree because you've already got 2 units you've done before. That information is not joined. They're totally siloed systems. And so what Ellucian has done is we've spent a lot of investment on our SaaS open architecture, our microservices platform. We see the future of education very much being, how do we offer the most open platform on the market so that institutions can rapidly plug and play with their current investments, whether that's Adobe or Salesforce or Dynamics or whatever LMS or virtual learning system is, how can we rapidly enable that and make sure that we are seen as a single source of truth for student-related data, and that data is available at the point in time when either another system needs it or a user needs it. And then to Una-san's point, how do we then analyze that and make sure that we're driving business decisions from real, accurate, quantifiable data? And that's, again, where Una-san's organization comes in, because they've got that understanding of the wider organization, how to analyze and use that data more effectively. I hope that was answer to the question.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a very comprehensive answer. Let's kind of get into, I mean, we've already seen what the university requires, right? So let's kind of get into, what Fujitsu and Ellucian provide. So you guys do have an entire suite of solutions specifically for the education sector. So maybe we can talk about a few highlights, highlights of the relevant technology for the education sector. So Uno-san, from your side?
Yep. I'm proud to say that Fujitsu is a global system integrator providing DX technologies. And even in Asia, we have around 5,000 customers base in Asia. And also we have 3,000 employees, maybe 60%, 70% delivery resources. And also we have a global data center in China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines. And also we have a 16 data center in the Asia region. So I think we have a perfect local presence to deliver the solutions. And as I mentioned, the Fujitsu is more for the infra system integration business focused at this moment. And in order to go into the education sector, we need to have very strong domain know-how partners in this sector. That is the Ellucian. So I think the global presence of Fujitsu's infrastructure platform and Ellucian's domain know-how for education is really a best match to approach not only in Singapore to across Asia. Now we are working in Singapore, and then we are trying to create a good success model in some specific customers. And also we are approaching several customers as well in Singapore. And based on the success model, then we can replicate this model to outside of Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Philippines, wherever. So that is my hope. And I think this is the best match between Fujitsu and Ellucian.
Excellent. So there's Fujitsu as a global system integrator, and Ellucian as a vertical specific specialist. So I think that's a very interesting match. Keith, from your side?
Yeah, look, again, absolutely on the money there. I mean, we see ourselves as experts in student management systems and the end-to-end life cycle management of the student journey. We need a really competent, well-established global leader like Fujitsu to help us to work with our customers on the broader digital transformation that sits around that. We can't be everything to everybody, and we think it's a perfect match. We have very strong growth plans for the region. We were recently purchased by Blackstone and Vista, some of the biggest VCs in the world, and as part of that, we've got a very strong growth planning region. We're working with Fujitsu currently within Singapore, but absolutely our plans are to move into Malaysia, to move into into the broader Asian markets, including Japan and Korea, and we have that plan mapped out. And we don't see ourselves as leading a lot of those engagements. We definitely see Fujitsu taking a leadership role in a lot of those engagements, and we really value the partnership that we have with them. Look, our platform, as I said, is open architecture. It's SaaS. As institutions start to take the digital journey, we see the first move into cloud as the first step typically. Again, you know, working with Fujitsu with their expertise around that and the cybersecurity part of the process. Look, we see that as really important. We've got about 150 vendors that we work with in terms of other products and services. But within the APAC region, we absolutely see Fujitsu as our core partner and a very capable organization that we want to continue to develop the relationship with. We're very pleased to be part of your organization, Inosan, and thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yep.
Excellent. You know, you mentioned SaaS, right? I think that's completely right. I mean, you know, I don't know how a multi-campus global university can function without the cloud at all. I mean, it's going to be near impossible these days. So very true. So let's finally have a look at, you know, what education might be a couple of years from now. Let's say, you know, the COVID wave is gone. We are sort of almost back to pre-pandemic days, although, you know, it doesn't feel like that's ever going to happen. But do you think that, you know, in the long term, things will get back to pre-2019 conditions, or do you think that, you know, this hybrid mode of learning, hybrid mode of education is here to stay forever? So let's get some ideas. Uno-san, your thoughts?
I think this subject is not only for education sector, but also in business life as well.
Yep.
In the case of Fujitsu, we have announced so-called work-life shift. And then even in Singapore, we have reduced office spaces by half. And then we can offer more flexible working style to the employees. And the objective of having office is more for communication and collaboration among the employees. And I think education sector as well in school, there is online education available, so that even though just learning something can be done by online, but among the students, they need to have some collaboration work or joint research together. That kind of a human relationship kind of education is also very important. So that I think after COVID, this should be a very dynamic, flexible or learning opportunity needs to be provided by the university, and that should be the value of university.
Excellent. Yeah, that's very true, right? I mean, the universities now are, you know, a highly competitive business. It's no longer, you know, the state-owned institutions that we had 100, 150 years ago. So, you know, they really need to compete on a global level from all these online courses as well as, you know, vocational courses, etc. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. Keith, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, again, I think it's been a really challenging time for institutions, and institutions are forced to go totally online. And I think it was probably in the face of some academics who were you know, slow in that uptake, really didn't want to push it, and were forced to. They had to go digital, and they had to start looking at how do we start to be effective in terms of online education. And one of the things we need to do around online education, because, you know, for those universities who just threw courses up online in the old PowerPoint format, it wasn't going to work, because it's now how do you offer the right engagement to our students who may have never visited the campus. This is their first experience of working with our institution, and you need to make sure they're engaged. You need to make sure that we're getting constant feedback and learning analytics that sit around those online courses. I think the whole upshot of this is institutions have realized that while the pandemic was a bad thing, they've learned a lot of lessons over the pandemic. And what they've realized is that the whole hybrid model is a fantastic opportunity to look at how they offer more choice to students. And students have realized that actually some things they want to do online, there's some things they want to do face-to-face, but having the opportunity to flex the way they study to maybe fit in with their lifestyle, or maybe they don't want to go to the university on a Monday and a Friday for whatever reason, it gives them those opportunities. And so we're seeing universities now embracing it and saying, this is great, we need to be more flexible. In fact, why have we even got semesters anymore. Why can't we just have a start date? And students can start at any point that they want to. It can be fully online. It can be a hybrid approach. So my view is that, look, it will continue on. I think it will be a selling point for institutions. I think the more flexibility they can offer and the more choice, it attracts more students. So I think it's here to stay, my opinion.
Brilliant. So pretty optimistic sort of evaluation from both of you. Excellent. So just a final question I'd just like to ask Uno-san. Um, maybe we can just talk a little bit about how Fujitsu works with the Ellucian system. So why Fujitsu for Ellucian from your perspective?
Yeah, to be a technology, when I came to Singapore, I started to say that the Fujitsu will transform a technology-based services company to drive the DX business model, right? And then there are three important components under them. One is pursue the technology. We have a technology, and then co-creation. We can provide technology, but we cannot provide the all kind of industries domain know-how. So that we need a partner who has specialized in the specific domain know-how. So in this case of education, Ellucian should be our very strategic partner. And then one more thing is a regional expansion. Since there is a lot of good experience in Singapore, so that we create the business model, well, we create the partner model in Singapore, and then expand this relationship or businesses to the outside of Singapore. So pursue the technologies and then co-creation and regional expansion. Those are the key contribution we provide to this partnership with Ellucian. And also the key offering, the technology, we can provide the cloud, we can provide IoT, AI, or even supercomputer. So those are the technology that even Ellucian can enjoy in the sector of education. So combining the domain expertise and Fujitsu's ICT technology can grow this business in this world.
Brilliant. That's an excellent summary. So yeah, we have quite a bit of information. So thank you both very much. And once again, there is Uno Motohiko, who is the country president of Fujitsu Asia. Thank you. And Keith Hawks, regional vice president for Sales Asia Pacific Ellucian. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.